Welcome to Energy Stew. This is Peter Roth, your host, and I'd like to ask you, what is joyful right now? Are you in joy? Maybe not, and maybe for good reasons not. But maybe there's another aspect of joy that we need to look at that is very available to us, even when we don't think so. And in order to help us find greater joy, is one of my best friends and someone who's been on the show a number of times before, and I love talking with her, Lisa Denton. Lisa, welcome back to Energy Stew.
Oh, thank you so much, Peter. Always a delight.
And so we're in a time right now, we're recording this a week before it airs, and we've just gone through a lot of upheaval in our country. So a lot of people might not be in joy, right?
I think it's a tremendous juncture for our planet and a tremendous time of contrast. You and I have spoken before about this time in our history, just as a human life stream and on the planet. But in contrast and what that means. And one of the things you and I discussed at another time, and we'll segue this into joy, but was very much how the old age was very much a time when people got a great sense of power and safety from the from separation, from scarcity, from different kinds of things that people needed to feel safe from a structure that no longer serves us. And we're moving into a time of great unity and healing on the planet. And there are people who are so stuck in their fear, they don't want things to change because their sense of power and their sense of self comes very much from the old paradigm. They want to feel empowered by the old structures, by scarcity, by manipulation, by whatever, and their fear keeps them very much in that loop of not wanting change. And so that therefore is the opposite of joy. That's when people are really fueled by their determination and commitment to keep their power structure so that they feel safe.
And that power structure is very tribal.
Yes.
And tribalism is all about fear. It's fear of the other tribes and fear of even people within your own tribe not being true to the tribe. Mm-hmm. And so tribes are very warrior-like and very structured to protect themselves.
Right. And so we're seeing the greatest display of that. And, I've said many times, and again, I don't know if it was the Dalai Lama or Buddha, but evil is not naming things properly because then it has power over you. So it is important that we are naming the amount of contrast we have lived with on this planet and the amount of tribalism that doesn't serve us going forward that we're seeing. And I think, you and I were talking a little bit before briefly that they're as challenging and as this time is, and so, and it's affecting all of us in very different ways. It's actually a positive. We want all of this to surface so we can see the contrast and the tribalism that has been there that is really no longer going to serve us moving forward in our society. We have to turn into, global denizens, and where we're finding ways to support our evolution and our humanity here. So
right. When people say, "Oh, this is terrible. What's happening is terrible," it's actually because a giant spotlight is on it,
right,
in a way that we realize the toxicity of it,
right,
and then we know that we have to deal with it. Otherwise, it just lies there.
Right. It is terrible. It's horrific, but it is like a deep, dark poison that's always been there. And it must rise to the surface so that we must see it and find ways to heal it and move forward in a place of unity. So very disturbing, very challenging, and I think an essential part of our transformation as a human life stream and on this planet with the earth. So that does get us into how do we find our center and how do we find joy. And it is through a place, it's very much a mindset and a practice. Joy is elusive. It's
It's
joy
not
is
a destination. It's
right.
an ongoing process.
Right. Nirvana is not a place you go. It's not someplace in the future. Nirvana is the nature of reality now. Nirvana, we are in nirvana right now. And Dalai Lama said, that laughter, joy, and a sense of humor is an index of spiritual development because joy is an interesting alchemy of mind over matter. It is a choice. It's practicing to make a choice of acceptance of what is now, and then finding ways to move that into future possibilities of visions for the future. And that's where we can move and not stay stuck in a place of stress and anxiety, because those places are expectations from where we are now of some awful destination, as opposed to our cultivating a practice of getting our mind over matter so that we can focus on actually using acceptance of what is so that we can be creators of a new vision of the future as opposed to staying stuck in the old expectations of what historically has been.
And let's look at that as our higher soul journey. Our higher soul purpose
Mhm.
is to create more light from darkness. And the joy is the glimmers of light that we find along the way of advancement, of progress, of soul progress, and let's call it soul progress of experiencing love as light, light as love.
Mhm.
And so the joy is the experience of the greater universe of light and love that we can know that we're functioning within amidst the turmoil.
Right. I think one of the things when we talked about this previously is that we often get caught up in our story, in our drama, in our history. We're reliving memories. We're expecting those things to happen, and we stop uh, living like the life of the mystic, where you're in awe of every single beautiful thing. And we can't live in that place all the time either. But can we have a practice where we can use our senses to rediscover the beauty of different elements of our life here, whether it's taste, smell, but just the hug, the touch of another human being. There's great joy. And these are things that we don't experience in the same way in the higher realms because there's not the same density of matter. And so, can we find ways to refocus on the joy of the little things? Because that is what reconnects us to our life essence, I think.
Right, and other dimensions also, there's not this sense of time that we have here that has so much limitation to it. Time doesn't really exist in very finite form out in the universe. We're the creators of time. And even though there is sequence, we, we're much more limited as humans on this plane.
Yeah. And I think that's what, we had also said, Peter, that I think is important, the difference between happiness and joy, because happiness is more superficial. Joy is it's like deep gratitude, deep love, some sense of fullness, of creating a sense of feeling joyful at the moment is a deep sense of self, as opposed to just a moment of, oh, that was funny, haha. And humor, by the way, I think is essential to finding your way to joy. I think.
Happiness is more, happiness also has to do with survival. Every time we survive anything, like indigestion, we get happy. It's
Right.
like, oh, now I'm happy. But is that, and you could say, well, that's joyful. Look how happy I am. And that is, I mean, we can then use both words simultaneously. But then again, we're really talking about a place that is more eternal in us, which
Mhm.
is the joy, rather than happiness is much more um, uh, transitory.
Right. And I think that's why I really like going back to nirvana. We are in nirvana right now, is because we live very much historically in our autopilot of survival, and we're reliving our and recreating our story in a way that's safe, in a way that feels good, and we kind of venture out into new possibilities in our life. But that joy and nirvana is giving your full attention into the gratitude of unlimited possibilities and experiencing them anew. It is a deeper
Yeah.
place. It's a much deeper place of actually feeling not just the acceptance, but a full attention of the potential of the moment and all of its possibilities.
And it's interesting because today I was counseling some different people who had similar issues having to do with needing to make choices for the future that would fulfill their soul's desire, but would bring on difficult circumstances. And, and so how do you advise people who they say, well, should I do this or shouldn't I? And you know that they're going to do it because their souls really want this. They're just afraid to make the choice because there's trepidation there, and for good reason. So every new step we take can be a landmine.
But that's the nature of being human, is contrast. We have set up this game of being human, and it's so very simple and so incredibly complicated and beautifully orchestrated. Without contrast, we don't evolve. We don't transform. We need the contrast to say, I don't want this, so I do want that. And if you don't have the challenges, it doesn't push us to strive for more, and then we don't evolve.
And I'm laughing because I know you so well. I know all your, life stories as such good friends, and you know mine. And I'm I'm laughing because you and I have taken on so many obstacles in our lives that when we've been in the middle of them, it's been crazy and dark. And so we've had many dark nights of our souls. And here we are talking about joy.
I know. I was many years ago when you said to me, "Oh, your soul is so entertained about this. It's just so entertaining." And in about 10 years, your soul is just going to be so happy that you went through all this. And I remember you're saying that, that doesn't help me at all. I don't think I can make it 10 years.
Right. That's the point, is that we're so concerned about our survival, our struggle, caught in it. And it's fine, it's not nice, but it's what we need to do. I
Right.
have someone I'm close to who actually, I know two people who know very well, who just lost jobs and now have to struggle in a very bad economy. And what do you say, to these situations where and my first thing to say is grieve it, be unhappy, feel lost, mourn it, because we get that way we get to the bottom of our darkness, and then we can start climbing back into the light.
Right. And I think that's actually such a powerfully important thing you just said, Peter. I have known for a long time that the one most important aspect for all of health is emotional processing, because it is the emotions that feed the body of how it will feel, and that affects your whole mind, body, heart connection. But it is processing emotions. If you don't process through your emotions, energy doesn't disappear. It only transmutes or transforms.
And often into the body in ways that give us illness.
It's like Bessel van der Kolk's beautiful book, The Body Keeps the Score. The body will hold on to it until you can process through it. And then you can get to, which I think is so essential, if you can not judge that you have emotional processing to do, but know it is the nature of our life here, is to feel fully, then we can get to a place of acceptance, because otherwise we are still fighting, we're judging, we're rejecting, we get stuck in this this whole tete-a-tete with our emotions that are unprocessed, and then that keeps us from joy.
But the
So
process is ugly.
well, you know, food process, if you got food poisoning, it's not pretty.
Right.
But your body goes on this automatic vomit and pooping and sweating, and your body does that for you, but we don't have that autopilot for our emotional processing. When you have food poisoning, the body just blah, and doesn't, way beyond when you think you're done. Your body will let you know
Right.
when the last little vibration of bad shrimp is out. It's not going to stop, and your body knows. But it doesn't do that about, that's a free will choice. Your body to move through your emotional processing is a free will choice. That's an evolutionary choice. It's a mind over matter choice to say, gosh, it's a beautiful day. I think I'll excavate some of my worst emotional traumas right now so that I can feel more joy. We just don't naturally do that.
Right. That's so hard.
Until you learn that the you know the what you garner from that is bliss. It's a degree of joy, a degree of fulfillment, a degree of gratitude that you can't, like that first sip of water that you have after you've had food poisoning is delightful. It's when you have done some massive emotional processing, your heart is open, to experience joy and gratitude and love to a whole different capacity. And that is really what makes you feel like an expanded human here. You can't feel joy if you don't acknowledge the suffering. And even the Dalai Lama says, it's not that joy or your practice takes the suffering away, it changes your relationship to it so that you see suffering as part of your journey to get to greater depths of joy. And I think that's what's, if we can continually just have just that ray of sunlight of knowing that our processing through our emotions will bring us to a place of acceptance, that will bring us to a place where we can create a new vision of the future and have a deeper sense of joy, then you feel more alive. That's what,
Right.
you can't feel that much joy if you haven't felt that much suffering. So
Right.
there's a silver lining. It's a gift. And in these incredibly challenging times, where these unprecedented times with health and economy and political, and oh my gosh, what, who would have ever thought, when I said, if your foundation is weak, you might need a wrecking ball. I think there's a Marianne Williamson case, it's quote actually. If when you think you need your house is rickety and you need a new paint job, well, you actually might need a wrecking ball because the foundation is weak. So you need to build a whole new foundation. I don't think it literally means that we wanted to knock down the Capitol building. I think, unfortunately, there's a lot of contrast out there right now. But in these unprecedented times, it's because we have such a new future that we can create together now. And that's what's important, that each one of us finds our own personal commitment to acceptance, to a new vision of the future, to experiencing joy, being fully present in moments of joy, because that's how we find our center to move forward instead of getting stuck in the chaos of the now.
And we have to remember that when we're in the darkness of the turmoil, it's been said a long time ago, actually. It was written in a spiritual book 100 years ago that people who think they're highly evolved will have deep, dark nights of their soul anyway. And because enlightenment is very transitory, we have to keep on creating it. And so when we're in that dark night, we're really not allowed to have flashlights, because then it's not really dark enough. And so we have to have those moments of like grasping for light that drive us forward. And then once we start glimmering the light of answers, of solutions, of possibility, then we're just so happy and joyful
Right.
that there's hope. And I think hope is a very, very important word to keep. And in this book that was written years ago, I think Desant, Annie, she was the author of it. Not sure, clear about her last name, but anyway, it was very clear that all we can have when we're stuck is the memory that of hope, the memory that, is hope for the memory of light, hope using the memory of light to wait and to be patient for the next opportunity to show up.
Right. And I think that's what you and I talk about a lot, between the two of us and with our greater community and our clients and things is, when it's cloudy out, we know that the sun is still there, even though you're not experiencing the sun in the same way. And just an awareness is that, just like what you were saying, is knowing a little bit more about the nature of evolution and transformation and the nature of being human. It helps us to know that when you're in the dark night, it's there for a purpose to help you actually live in more light. The actual purpose, Jesus went out to the desert. Moses went up to Mount Sinai in the burning bush. Milarepa had to go back in the cave. I mean, all of these things because our enlightened predecessors told us, you're never done. It's never over.
Right.
But it's a process, because every time you do go through contrast, you have the potential for greater joy, greater light, greater love. And it is through that process that helps you, again, it ensures human evolution and it keeps us expanding. And when you have those moments of incredible joy and connection with another human, incredible bliss at the beauty of this incredible earth, when you recognize your mortality and you can just start to trying to be fully present as much as you can to appreciate as many beautiful aspects of this life, your life becomes richer. And it is so it's so possible for all of us, and it's elusive, by the way. It's elusive. And
Right.
that's why it's a practice.
Right. So just keep taking the next step, the next
That's
step,
right.
the next step. And even when it's dark, like when I'm struggling, I look for just little successes. What can I do that can make me feel better? Sharpening a pencil, or,
Mhm.
you know, anything that works, that I say, oh, something works.
Right.
and then feel good about that. And also last week's show was on sacred space, and knowing what your sacred spaces are. And that's another thing, is to be able to
Mhm.
you know call on sacred space when we need it.
There's in the, and I know I'm paraphrasing, and so with 10 grains of salt, just exercises, or an exercise that I would recommend. The simplest thing is breath, but focus breath with an intention where you can just breathe in and say, I feel the breath in my body as you inhale. I feel the breath leaving my body as you exhale. And then you can start breathing in and say, I feel calm in my body as you inhale. I feel calm in my body as I exhale. And then you can breathe in and say, I can open myself to joy in this moment. I can open myself as you breathe in and breathe out. It can take 5 minutes and it can change the focus of your day to help you not go down that rabbit hole. I
Right.
just wanted to actually give a very doable, paint by numbers Buddhist exercise of, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole. Just keep saying the phrases, I feel calm in my body, every time you inhale and every time you exhale, until you can start feeling the calm.
I had a session today with a client who his wife was in constant struggles and stress. And he said, what kind of medication should she have? Because she needs medication. And actually I said, well, we could work on these, breathing things and all that. But I said, there is an herb that I recommend to people called Bacopa, B-A-C-O-P-A, that when you're really in a dark space, take some of that. And it really will help lift you out. And so I want to recommend that as part of the show.
I don't know that one, Peter. I don't know that. There's always, and that's the thing is we're physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional beings while we're here in this reality now. And that if you're out of balance, there are so many natural ways. Nature wants to be in balance. And if we can give our bodies some of the foundations to get more in balance, it helps us then emotionally and mentally. And if we are more emotionally in balance, it helps us physically. But there are, just wonderful things we can do. And
we could even do a show about that.
Yeah.
About
and
balance.
every single thing we do to create more balance is important in the ingredient. And I know I'm repeating myself, but I think it's so important to say, if I could instill this more deeply in myself and everyone else, that when you can move through your emotions and get to acceptance, you stop fighting and judging and rejecting. And when you get to a place of acceptance, there is the possibility for you to cultivate joy, cultivate a vision of possibility, cultivate gratitude, cultivate new possibilities. And if you don't get to acceptance, it's really difficult.
I have another idea for a future show with you about self-love. So good, thanks you. Because we're at the end of this show, so I'm glad to have opportunities to do more with you. So much, I'm so grateful to talk with you, and you have so much to say, and I'm just excited that we can do these shows. Thank you.
Always a joy, and everyone on the planet, please work at cultivating self-love and acceptance so you can cultivate joy. It is a human birthright for all of us to experience joy in our lives.
Thank you, Lisa Denton. And also, you lead a Saturday morning meditation. That many people have really appreciated. And then we have a discussion group after that. And so people should contact you for many things, many reasons. At what email address?
Okay, Lisa W. Denton at gmail.com.
Okay.
If you want to get on the mailing list I do a Thursday noon talk, and then Saturday World Healing Meditation. We gather at 8:45. We start a 21-minute meditation from 9 to 9:21 for World Healing. And then Peter and I always have a lively discussion of some topic on every Saturday morning. So,
Lisa, thank you. Thank you so much. And I hope people take advantage of that. And thanks for being on Energy Stew again. And this is Peter Roth, your host of Energy Stew at prn.fm. I can be reached at Peter at HeartRiver, HEART river.org. I'd love to hear from you, and thanks so much for listening.